Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Hunter, and I work in the Policy Office at the National Science Foundation. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to another session at the Fall 2022 NSF Virtual Grants Conference. Before we begin, we'd like to take a poll to find out more about you. If you're using Zoom from a desktop browser, you may not be able to access the poll. For all the sessions, please be sure you are viewing the presentation from the Zoom application. If you have questions for the presenters, please submit them using the Q&A function. Please keep in mind that we have a lot of individuals registered for this session, so we may not be able to answer all your questions at this time. This session is being recorded and it will be made available on our website, nsfpolicyoutreach.com, in the coming weeks. We'll be sending an email announcement as soon as sessions are posted. If you have any technical difficulties during this presentation, please submit it in the Q&A and someone will assist you. Thank you so much for participating in our poll. I'm now pleased to present this session, which will cover the Director for Biological Sciences. This session will be presented by Leslie Rissler, Acting Division Director in the Division of Environmental Biology, and Manju Hingorani, Program Director in the Division of Molecular and Cellular Biosciences.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the Biological Sciences Directorate session of this NSF Grants Conference. I am Manju Hingorani. I'm a Program Director in the Molecular and Cellular Biosciences Division, and I'm joined by Leslie Rissler. Leslie?
Thanks, Manju. I'm Leslie Rissler in the Division of Environmental Biology. Happy to be here.
Thanks. So Leslie and I will go over three main topics in our presentation today. We'll be done in plenty of time for questions, so we encourage you to post them through the Q&A function. First, we'll give an overview of the Bio Directorate, followed by information on bio funding programs, and finally, some tips on how you can connect with us after this conference. The mission of the Biological Sciences Directorate is to enable the scientific community in making discoveries to understand life better, from the molecular to ecosystem scale, and to keep pushing the frontiers of biological knowledge, especially by bringing together expertise from different scientific disciplines in ways that allow us to determine and predict how complex, dynamic living systems work. In keeping with this mission, BIO has outlined priorities for the fiscal year 2023. And these priorities are in line with NSF's strategic plan for 2022 to 2026 that emphasizes investment in foundational research and a diverse scientific community in order to benefit society. So the priorities are emerging infectious diseases. BIO is interested in questions such as how do infectious diseases emerge and evolve and spread and function in hosts. And addressing these kinds of questions requires transdisciplinary approaches to understand mechanisms that either enable or suppress pathogen infection and spread. And the outcomes of this basic research could yield new effective ways of preventing or mitigating emerging infectious diseases. The other priority is life on a warming planet. How does the changing climate affect different forms of life? What mechanisms will enable adaptation and resilience? Can we harness biological mechanisms and processes to mitigate climate change? Another priority is biotechnology to advance the bioeconomy. Cross-cutting research and technology development in biology, chemistry, computing, engineering, mathematics, and other disciplines is really driving the bioeconomy. And so the Bio Directorate supports use-inspired research that can lead to innovations in biotechnology. Another priority area is integration across the biological sciences. And BIO continues to promote synergies between disciplines, supporting the trans and cross-disciplinary science that's needed to address grand challenges in biology. And finally, and the most important, is broadening participation. BIO and NSF put a very high value on increasing participation and diverse representation in the STEM workforce, because this is critical for the success of the entire scientific exercise. The Bio Directorate is organized into 4 divisions that support research spanning all scales of biological organization, from the smallest molecules to cell in MCB, that's molecular and cellular biosciences, to organisms and organismal systems in IOS, that's Integrative Organismal Systems, to larger communities, ecosystems, and the environment in DEB, that's Division of Environmental Biology. The fourth division is DBI, Division of Biological Infrastructure, which supports human resources and research infrastructure across all biological disciplines. Leslie and I will go over the programs and priorities of these divisions in the next few slides. But it's also important to note that the Biodirectorate encourages research that cuts across all biological subdisciplines and other disciplines. So if your research project interfaces with more than one program or division, we have mechanisms in place for co-review and co-funding. So as you develop your research idea, we encourage you to contact a program director. It's an important part of our job to get your proposal before the most suitable panel of reviewers. So please do, again, contact a program director with your project idea. So, as I mentioned, the next set of slides describes some of the funding programs in the Biodirectorate, and I'll first go over the 4 bio divisions. The Division of Molecular and Cellular Biosciences supports research at the smallest scale of biological organization. MCB emphasizes quantitative, predictive, and theory-driven science aimed at understanding complex living systems at the molecular, subcellular, and cellular levels. MCB has 4 core programs: cellular dynamics and function, genetic mechanisms, molecular biophysics, and systems and synthetic biology. And all of these 4 MCB programs intersect a fair bit with each other, with other bio programs, and with other disciplinary research supported by the NSF, including chemistry, physics, maths, computer science, and engineering. In addition, MCB has special programs that support areas of particular interest to us. For example, MCB is calling for proposals right now to develop a synthesis center for molecular and cellular science, and this will enable the community to better leverage big data to solve complex biological questions. There are also open calls to design and build synthetic cells and synthetic microbial communities, and to take advantage of the resources available at the NSF and DOE-funded Agile Biofoundry. MCB also offers the Transitions Program, which supports mid-career faculty to grow their research program in new and exciting and impactful directions. I should note that on all these slides, the acronyms are linked to the program pages, so you can link to those and find more detailed information. The next division, Integrative Organismal Systems, IOS, supports research to understand how organisms develop and function and behave through the interactions between their genotype and their phenotype and the environment. IOS has several core programs organized within 4 clusters: developmental systems, behavioral systems, neural systems, and physiological and structural systems. IOS also has a variety of special programs, enabling discovery through genomics, or EDGE, which I'll describe in a bit more detail later, and also ORC, Organismal Response to Climate Change, which focuses on understanding and improving predictions of life on a warming planet. Partnership to Advance Conservation Science and Practice. This is a partnership between NSF and the Allen Foundation to support a virtuous cycle between conservation science and practice. Then there's PBI, Plant Biotic Interactions, which focuses on interactions between plants, their symbionts or pathogens and pests. And then there's PGRP. This is the Plant Genome Research Program, a long-running program which supports genome-scale plant research and development of tools or resources that advance functional plant genomics. The next division, Division of Environmental Biology, supports research on evolution, functional relationships, and interactions of populations, species, communities, and ecosystems. DEB has 4 core programs: ecosystem science, evolutionary processes, population and community ecology, and systematics and biodiversity science. DEB also sponsors several special programs: Biodiversity on a Changing Planet, and I will describe this one in just a bit. Ecology and Evolution of Infectious Diseases. This is an interagency program to support research into ecological, evolutionary, and social drivers that influence infectious disease transmission. The LTER and LTREB programs support ecological and environmental research over extended periods of time. The Macrosystems Biology and NEON-enabled science support system-level research on biosphere processes, their interactions with the climate, land use, and the inhabitant species. And this is all done by leveraging open access ecological data gathered by the National Ecological Observatory Network, that's NEON. And then there's OPUS, which enables investigators to revisit and synthesize a significant body of their prior research or data to forge new insights and understanding. And the PAC-SP, or Partnership to Advance Conservation Science and Practice, this is, I mentioned this one earlier, this is jointly sponsored by iOS and DEB. The final Division of Biological Infrastructure, DBI's mission is to enable a robust and resilient national infrastructure that advances fundamental biological research for societal benefit now and in the future. So DBI invests in infrastructure for innovation and capacity building in biological sciences research. And this includes human capital, instrumentation and technology, institutes and centers, and mid to large scale facilities. DBI support for human resources includes many programs, including the postdoctoral research fellowships in biology, research coordination networks in undergraduate biology education, research experiences for undergraduates, REU sites. And then in partnership with other bio divisions, DBI has also launched multiple new programs, including BRC Bio, that's for new faculty in biology, RAMP, which is to support post-baccalaureate training and mentoring, BioRETS, which is for teacher sites in the biological sciences, and Leslie will speak about these in a bit more detail later in the presentation. DBI also funds a number of center scale investments, including the Biology Integration Institutes, NEON that I mentioned just earlier, and mid-scale research infrastructure. And the most recent venture is this open call for an information synthesis center in the molecular and cellular biosciences that I just mentioned earlier. Before we move from the core bio programs, let me address two very common questions that we receive in bio. The first one is, does bio support biomedical research? Well, according to the NSF Proposal and Awards Policies and Preparation Guide, that's PAPG, also linked here on the slide, research on human disease-related mechanisms is normally not supported by the NSF, nor is development of animal models of disease or testing of drugs or treatment procedures. And this position is mainly to avoid duplication of effort and mission across agencies that support life sciences research. And we all know that the primary mission of the National Institutes of Health is to support medical research on humans. There is some nuance in bio's position. So basic research that can contribute to improving human health in the future is a societal benefit, and that can be supported. So you should, again, contact a program director in the relevant program for a read on your specific research idea. Also, some programs, for example, engineering, do support research with diagnosis or treatment-related goals, as long as they advance basic knowledge in that discipline. And so again, you should contact a program director. The other question we're asked often is, when should I submit my proposal? So the Biological Sciences Directorate has no deadlines for investigator-initiated research proposals. So there's an example of a solicitation on the right here. You can see circled in red, proposals are accepted anytime. So again, submit your proposal when you think it's ready. There's no limit on the number of proposals you can submit as PI or co-PI, as long as they're non-overlapping. Panels are held periodically throughout the year to ensure timely review, and the average time to decision is about 6 months. But again, note that some special programs do have deadlines, so you must check the solicitation or the Dear Colleague letter that announces the program. And again, that's an example over here with the BRC Bio program. The deadlines are listed right up front in the highlighted circle. There is a blog post on when should I submit my proposal. You're welcome to go and look at that for more detail on this question. All right, so in the previous slides, I mentioned several special programs that are supported by the 4 bio divisions. And these programs focus on large-scale societal challenges and complex biological problems. So they tend to be cross-disciplinary, and they're set up as joint ventures between the bio divisions, or between bio and other NSF directorates, or between bio and other funding agencies. And so I'll sample some of these programs for you next. Here's IntBio, Integrative Research in Biology, and this program spans all bio divisions. It supports collaborative research teams that integrate multidisciplinary approaches to address fundamental questions about biological systems. So IntBio research must cross scales of biological organization. It must bring tools, the research projects must bring tools and expertise from different biological subdisciplines to bear on the problem. And these projects must also train diverse cohorts of students in cross-disciplinary research. The deadline for IntBio is January 24th, 2023. So you're welcome to look into that program some more. The next program I'll highlight is the Biology Integration Institutes. It also spans all 4 bio divisions. It has similar research and educational goals as IntBio, but it supports much larger collaborative teams for at least 5 years, again, to investigate fundamental questions that cross scales in biology. And these projects must also help lay the foundation for new biotechnologies and applications to serve the bioeconomy. The 2022 deadline has passed, but if you're interested, please do check the program page for updates on the next submission date. The next example I'll highlight is a cross-bio program that targets a priority research area, and that is how to build synthetic microbial communities for a variety of purposes. And this program supports research on how synthetic microbial communities form, how they're maintained, how they evolve. And again, this is in order to try to understand how to create functional synthetic microbial communities that address challenges such as mitigating climate change, or they could be used to serve other biotechnology or bioengineering functions. The next submission deadline is August 2024 and every other year thereafter. Biodiversity on a Changing Planet. This is a partnership between programs in the Directorate and the Geosciences Directorate at the NSF, and with science agencies in China, Brazil, and South Africa. So it has a strong international component. This program supports research on functional biodiversity from a range of cellular to ecological and geological perspectives. And it has an important goal of better modeling and forecasting the impacts and consequences of changes in biodiversity in the context of the changing climate. So if you're interested, check the Biodiversity on a Changing Planet, the BOCP program page for updates on the next submission deadline. And the final program that I will highlight is EDGE, Enabling Discovery Through Genomics. This is a cross-bio program that partners with NIH and actually the NHGRI, National Human Genome Research Institute, to support development of genomic tools and genome-scale research in order to decipher the relationships between genes and phenotypes in environmental, developmental, social, and other contexts. The program accepts proposals in 2 tracks. The first one is focused on development of functional genomic tools to advance research in non-model species. So very diverse species that are non-model, not established models. And the second track is focused on understanding the mechanisms underlying complex multigenic traits. The next submission deadline is February 16, 2023, and the third Thursday in February annually. And with all of this talk, I'm going to hand over to Leslie for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Manju. So now we're going to move to bio programs that emphasize building capacity, first with a focus on people. Next slide. We support researchers at all career stages because we understand that to empower STEM talent, we need to involve everyone at all stages, especially to enhance and engage individuals and institutions who have been underrepresented in STEM. Over the next few slides, I will highlight several of these programs in some depth, but you can see here that we have bio programs and NSF-wide programs that span the spectrum from K through 12, undergraduate, post-baccalaureate, graduate, postdoc, and faculty stages, including ones at different sensitive transition points in academia. Next slide. This is Research Experiences for Teacher Sites in Biological Sciences, the BioRETS program. This is a new program that supports active research in the biological sciences by cohorts of middle school teachers, high school teachers, and/or community college faculty, with the goal of enriching the classroom experience so students are inspired to consider higher education and careers in STEM. The next deadline is July 31st. Next. Moving to the post-baccalaureate stage, we have a new program to develop research training sites for both post-baccalaureate students. This is RAMP. The goal is to help students who have graduated but may not have had an opportunity for research experiences as an undergraduate. The program funds networks to support full-time research, mentoring, and training for recent college graduates, which will lead to a more representative and globally competitive STEM workforce. Next. Bio has long supported postdocs. The current postdoctoral research fellowship in biology program has 3 tracks, one in broadening participation, one in integrative research, specifically investigating the rules of life governing the interactions between genomes, environment, and phenotypes, and one focused on plant genomes. The deadline is November 3rd. Next. Another exciting new program for new faculty in biology is the Building Research Capacity of New Faculty in Bio. This is BRC Bio. This supports pre-tenure faculty, specifically those within the first 3 years of their appointment at non-R1 institutions. It enables the establishment of research programs for these new faculty, and it enriches the undergraduate research experience of those students who work with BRC Bio faculty. NSF is particularly interested in broadening participation and enhancing the research capacity at minority serving institutions and predominantly undergraduate institutions, and this solicitation is targeted at those types of institutions. Budgets can be up to $450,000 plus an additional $50,000 for equipment, and there are 2 upcoming target windows, December and June. And after that, there'll be 1 target window per year. Next. The Mid-Career Advancement, or MCA program, is now in its 3rd year. It's a cross-directorate program that provides scientists and engineers with protected time and resources to remain engaged in cutting-edge research at a career stage replete with constraints. Those constraints being time and money for research. We know that mid-career faculty are often overloaded with service and administration, mentoring, teaching, elder care, childcare, and other activities, and these often fall disproportionately on women and underrepresented groups. The MCA is meant to lift those constraints and thereby foster a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce, especially at high leadership ranks. Budgets can include up to 6.5 months of salary, so you can buy out a semester of time, an additional 2 months of summer support, or perhaps 2 summer months for 3 years for a total of 6 months of salary. You can also ask for 1 month of salary for your partner who you're going to work with and train with to learn new skills. And you'll also have $100,000 in direct costs to support the advancement of your research and training. You must be at the associate professor rank with at least 3 years at that rank. We've extended eligibility to full professors at primarily undergraduate institutions only. And this year that's available for those people who do research in bio or geo. There's a 12-page project description, not 15, and you also have to have a 2-page impact statement that outlines the PI's constraints on their time and or research fund that make them a really good candidate for the MCA. The target window, all of February. Next slide. So now we'll move on to infrastructure in bio at a high level view. Next. The National Ecological Observatory Network is NEON, and this is a continental scale network of 81 sites meant to be studied for at least 30 years to uncover information on ecological and climatological conditions. Data from these sites may, for example, be used to inform researchers and decision makers about agricultural systems, forest management, invasive biology, atmospheric transport, and deposition of pollutants and dust, and so on. These freely available data products from NEON support research questions in 5 major thematic areas, including atmospheric chemistry and processes, organisms, ecohydrology, biogeochemistry, and land cover. And there are several opportunities for PIs, educators, students, and the broader community to use NEON data to advance both science and science education across the continent and more globally. There is freely available data that may be downloaded and incorporated into teaching and training modules. NEON offers half-day and 3-day workshops to train students and researchers on key skills to work with NEON and NEON-like data. NEON provides software code to help the community work with NEON data. They offer free online tutorials to improve data skills. They also provide freely accessible teaching modules and data sets that enable faculty to develop and implement data-centered, student-centric materials. And NEON also supports faculty mentoring networks that provide free professional development opportunities for professors to focus on implementing the use of NEON data in their classroom. Next. The Long-Term Ecological Research Network is another program that it's also referred to as LTER. It's been ongoing since 1980. There are currently 28 sites that support ecological discovery and the influence of long-term and large-scale phenomenon. Data also are publicly available. LTER sites train a large group of students and a diverse group in ecological science, and LTER provides educational outreach through the LTER Schoolyard series and other efforts. The Directorate of Biological Sciences, as well as the Directorates for Geosciences and Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences help run and fund the LTER network. Next. And finally, here's how you can find out more and reach out to us. Next. So to get bio news and updates, sign up for the emails, go to the main NSF webpage, www.nsf.gov, find that orange box and click it. This is going to get you information on new solicitations, Bio's quarterly newsletter, and much more. NSF is particularly interested in broadening participation and enhancing research, and you'll find opportunities on that as well. Next slide. The bio blogs are a wonderful way to stay informed, and there's one for each of the divisions, plus one from the Office of the Assistant Director. Definitely check these out. Even if you're not in the Division of Environmental Biology, check out the Molecular and Cellular Biology, the MCB blog, and others, because you'll find lots of information there. Next. The virtual office hours are monthly informational webinars with live Q&A. These are great, and I highly recommend that you tune into a few of them. The topics vary from how do you write a great presentation or a proposal to what should you put in an annual report. They'll give you information on all the new solicitations. And each division has their own VOH. The topics are announced way in advance so you can see what is of interest to you and then register, which is very fast. The slides are often posted afterwards so you can get the information even if you happen to be busy when the VOH is scheduled. Next. So here are a few take-home messages since we've provided a lot of information to you today. First, the BioCore programs have no deadline. Submit your proposal when it's ready. 2, we have multiple funding mechanisms to support interdisciplinary research, PIs who are at different career stages, including new faculty and mid-career faculty. We support infrastructure, and we support education, outreach, and broadening participation in STEM. If you are in doubt about where your research fits in bio, we encourage you to contact a program officer to discuss your ideas. And the best way to do that is send a one-pager with the summary of your research and broader impacts to one of those program officers in the area that's most closely aligned to your research topic, and we will help you figure out where to go from there. Next. NSF and bio needs you. We need reviewers. We need panelists. Please reach out to us. 50% of the program directors in NSF are rotators. They're not federal employees, but rather academics who come to NSF for 1 to 3 years to serve and then return to their home institution. If you think you may be interested in this now or in the future, please reach out to us. There are other positions as well in bio, and I'll just end by saying that bio is one of the best places to work in the federal government, ranking number 4 last year. And we're happy to take questions. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Leslie and Manju. We will proceed now with the questions. And everyone, if you have questions that are coming to mind now, please feel free to add those to the Q&A. So the first question, what programs or funding sources do you recommend for Hispanic serving institutions or undergraduate state schools with an interest in STEM teaching in biology and diversity in students? And thank you also, Colette, for joining us with the Q&A.
So my assumption here is that the person who has asked this question is also combining the STEM teaching with research. And so a couple of programs that might be useful for you to consider, especially if you're an undergraduate school, are the facilitating research at primarily undergraduate institution. This is a RUI. Known as the RUI program. The program solicitation is 14579. And again, the support is for research, but at the scale of an undergraduate institution. So the size, the scale, the scope of the research is commensurate with the kind of infrastructure you have and the capacity you have to do the research. And so this is a great program. The other part of that resolicitation is that you can apply for a research opportunity award as well. And this enables you to pair up with a PI at a larger institution so that you can use that partnership to advance your own research and provide opportunities for students at your institution. Another solicitation that might be particularly, or funding opportunity that might be particularly apt is BRC Bio, and that was mentioned in the presentation. The solicitation number was 22500. I think there's been a couple of questions that were answered already in the text of the Q&A that reference that program. And then, of course, MCA, which Leslie just mentioned, and I think is going to talk about some more in the next question. So I'll pause there. If you have a follow-up question, you're welcome to ask.
Thank you. And Daniel, I didn't see you. Thank you also for joining us for the Q&A. Yes. So someone wants to give a huge thank you to whoever wrote the blog that was mentioned. And it really helped to better understand what we're going for with MCA. So is there any advice you have for folks considering this program? A lot of people are at PUIs, but predominantly undergraduate institutions would love guidance for better advising our faculty on this program.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So anyone at a PUI, associate, with at least 3 years in or a full professor can apply to the MCA. And that full professor rank is just for bio and just for geo this year. And then hopefully it will be expanded to some other directorates. And if you're an administrator, because I saw on the survey that many of you are administrators, to share that opportunity, the MCA, with not just your biologist at your institution, but with the geologists, with the people in the social, behavioral, and economic sciences, with your education group as well. All of those are part of the MCA, as well as the TIP directorate here at NSF. Reach out, tell your PIs to reach out to mca.info@nsf.gov. I can put that in the chat, and we can provide lots of information to your PIs.
Leslie, you commented on bio be one of the best places to work. So someone asked, are you hiring now?
We hire constantly. There's like 50% of the people are rotators. So we're constantly interviewing, things like that. And if you're interested, reach out to us.
Yes. While we await more questions coming in, Leslie, you also mentioned reviewers. Can you talk a little more about what it takes? Do I have to be affiliated with the U.S. institution? Just tell me a little more about what it takes to be a reviewer. Do I have to stay in my lane? Can I reach out if I have a particular area of expertise? Do I stay in that? Can I kind of cross directorate? So
that's a lot of questions, Samantha. So I would say there are several of the divisions have some surveys that you can, and I can put for the Division of Environmental Biology, you can fill out this link and provide some information to us about your research interest, your what state you are in, both geographically, but also rank. Some groups like you to have some reviewer experience before you're a panelist, right? So the first thing is you can reach out to us and say, here's my CV, and I'd really like to be a reviewer. And we can add you to our database, or you can fill out the link yourself, depending on what your area of expertise. And yeah, so that's how you get started. I mean, we would want you to review proposals that are in your lane. In other words, where you're an expert, certainly. And then we can invite you for a panel, which is a wonderful way for you to get experience in what NSF is all about and how to make your proposal even better. Colette, Manju, Daniel, if you want to add anything.
I would say that most programs actually have just ask you to email the program director. So if you find an area that is not necessarily in your lane, but at least not necessarily in a narrow lane, but a wide field or a field, if you will, you should just send an email to the program director for that in that field. And maybe I should give a shout out to GRFP as well, because they're always looking for reviewers. Maybe Dan, you want to say something about that?
Exactly. If you go to info.grfp.gov, you will find a lot of information about the GRFP. And you can also reach out to that email to be a reviewer on the GRFP panels.
And I think, Dan, the other thing is that this is great, especially for junior investigators. And I think even postdocs, if I'm not mistaken, can be reviewers for GRFP proposals. So it's a great opportunity to get started reviewing.
Okay, we have a follow-up question about the MCA program. Is it 3 years after becoming an associate professor, or is it at least 3 years at an institution? The question came in because they have some newly hired associate professors that will be a good fit for the MCA, but they haven't been at the institution for 3 years yet.
If you can count years at another institution, so if you were an associate professor somewhere else and then you moved and you've only been at that institution for 1 year, that's still 3 years. The departmental letter will confirm your eligibility. So that's a letter that's required. It's not as much a letter like this person is fantastic. It's about whether that person recognizes that you will be asking for time off, 6.5 months of protected time. They need to know that if they're, dealing with the department, and also that you're eligible. Along with that, just to follow up a couple of other additional details, you'll have a partner that you'll work with. So you don't have to change fields. We don't require faculty to change fields all the time. Sometimes people want to move into a new direction. That's a possibility. So you'd pick a partner in another discipline, or you can just really tune up and get those cutting edge techniques, because biology and all these other disciplines move so quickly that after your postdoc and you've been in your tenure track position for a long time, you likely could use some time to catch up. And that's important too. And that partner letter will describe how that's going to benefit your research program and career.
Okay, another question. Which funding umbrella should one apply for if they want to host a workshop focused on encouraging scientific collaboration between BIPOC scientists, and they're writing from a nonprofit?
Well, I can bring up the NSF Includes program. The Includes program is looking to broaden participation, and it's foundation-wide, and they have one mechanism is a conference mechanism. So it's not quite a workshop, but it's a smaller aspect of the Includes program to do a kind of a conference where this might be able to fit within there. The only issue is the deadline just passed, so you'd be looking for submission for next year sometime.
Okay.
And I'll just say one thing. I'll put it in the chat. There's BioLeaps, which is leading culture change through professional societies. So it doesn't sound like you're a professional society, but that solicitation is also of potential interest to some of you. And I'll put that link down here.
Leslie, I'm actually the lead of the BioLeap, so I can jump in and expand that a little bit. We kept the definition of professional society broad intentionally. And so please reach out to the BioLeap's email if you have any questions about whether or not you'd be eligible.
So thanks for mentioning BioLeaps. I also wanted to mention that if it's a particular scientific area, you may wish to contact the program in that, that funds research proposals in those areas, because all research programs also fund conference proposals. So you might be able to attract interest because of the scientific area that you're trying to develop this research community in. And so that's also a possibility. It's more ad hoc than a formal funding program as the other two that were mentioned, but it's certainly worth sending your idea to a program director.
Okay. Are there any opportunities for research administrators to participate in the review process without having scientific expertise? Or is there another way to observe the review process to better assist PIs?
I'd like to comment on that. Our review process pretty much exclusively engages with scientific expertise in the science-focused directorates. But it's not uncommon for us to offer, as part of outreach, mock panel experience. So, for instance, I regularly attend the Congress for Undergraduate Research conference, and we often have some sort of mock panel activity there, which I think illustrates the nature of the review process and would be useful to help inform PIs. But another avenue is to encourage them to send their information to relevant programs where we would then engage them as a reviewer directly.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we have another question. Can a non-tenure track faculty member be added as a co-PI for the NSF 22-500?
Colette can answer this question. That's BRC Bio. I want to make sure that it's the correct answer. So I'm going to ask her to answer it, please.
Yes. Co-PIs are allowed for the BRC Bio program, and they don't have to have any particular career stage or expertise. So the PI needs to meet the program requirements. They need to be someone who is within 3 years of their tenure track appointment at an eligible institution, but they can have whatever co-PIs they would like, or collaborators that are not serving as co-PIs via letters of collaboration. It's really quite flexible.
I think you just have to make sure that your institution allows you to be a co-PI on a solicitation. That's true for all programs. So you can be senior personnel, but you can also be co-PI if your institution deems you eligible to do that.
Okay. Colette, you mentioned the mock panel reviews. Do you have any YouTube videos on the review or of the mock panel?
I'm not aware of any.
I know of one. I teach a 1-week course on my vacation time in the summer because I miss teaching at a field station. So it's really fun for me. And we have a video in there. I'll try to find it and put it in the chat if we go for a few more minutes.
The other thing is that NSF actually has some video resources on reviewing tips, and I'll try to find that link as well. But Leslie's course is great.
It's not of me, it's of NSF. It's an NSF mock panel.
I meant the one you mentioned.
Yes. Oh, we still have time for more questions, so please continue to send the questions in. We may have just gotten one. Is there any, while we're awaiting questions, do you all have any, since we have so many of you here, any strong takeaways that you would like the audience to just keep in mind? If there's one thing you need them to remember, can you give us something?
Mine is to reach out to us as program officer. Our job is to figure out how your research, what's the best place to put your research to be reviewed in the best manner. So you don't have to figure out every little opportunity from the NSF webpage. You can use us as a resource, and we'll help you help enable your research to get funded.
Anyone else?
I think that was going to be the one tip that we all were going to jump and say, this is the tip. And so somebody asked a question about where's the link to the tips for contacting a program director. And I did put that link in a blog post it was an office hour link that I've put in one of the Q&As. And there's a lot of written answers in the Q&As, so y'all should refer to that. Some useful information there.
Okay, another question. Can you talk a little about support for international collaborations, for instance, NSF with NERC?
First off, I'll say that there's a recent iOS blog post on this topic. So take a look at the iOS blog and search for international collaboration. One of the things that's important to realize is that the NSF, while we primarily support the US scientific enterprise, we recognize how important international collaboration is and therefore are eager to support it in any way we can. We have some special collaborations with NERC as well as some other international agencies so that the funding of those projects can be considered jointly by NERC and the NSF at the same time. This is a way that we partner with other international countries to fund joint research. However, those are not the only opportunities for collaboration. Regular awards can include collaborations with international scientists. We just expect those collaborations to be very well justified and explained so that the NSF has a good understanding of the value of the international collaboration for the US enterprise. The blog talks a little bit more about the subtleties there, so have a look.
Okay, we have another question. Can an undergraduate be paid as a participant if they take a training program, but then as an employee, if they work on the project the following semester?
I think so, because they are paid as a participant for a specific activity.
Yes.
And likewise, they're being paid as an employee later for a different specific activity. I don't think there's a problem with it being the same individual.
That's correct. It can be the same individual, but the roles would have to be identified. They have to be specified. What is it you're doing? What are you getting paid for? Because you cannot be paid for both at the same time. So the double dipping can't happen. So if the institution has that individual in one role, and that's how that individual will be treated. And then the next go around, the individual's, in another role, then yes, the individual is treated as such. There just can't be the same participant or the same individual being treated the same at the same time. So, yes. Wait, do we have another? Okay, so anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments you all want to make to the audience? If you have any other questions, put it in the chat. We have just a couple minutes left, or anything else you all want to say, presenters.
Is there a way to send links later? Because I've been trying to find this wonderful site that I know of, NSF, with lots of tips for reviewers, and I'm sorry to say I cannot find it. It just means it hasn't been upvoted on Google enough, I guess. So is there a way to send links later, or this is it? I'm just curious.
I do not know that answer. We can add the link. They can post it with the recording. So the links you have, mind you, it can be included with the recording when this is made available in the coming weeks. So we'll be sure to include the links you're talking about. So then everyone will have access to it. Okay.
I'll say one more thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, the administrators in the room, if you want program officers to come to your institution virtually and provide a webinar, sort of a virtual office hour with your faculty. For example, we do this with the mid-career advancement solicitation. It's really great because, especially when you can invite lots of regional other institutions all joining at one time, we do those kinds of things as well. So you can reach out to us about that.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. For faculty who serve as temporary as IPAs, how does that help with their research development? Is there time for that?
All program directors at the NSF are eligible for something we call IRD, or research and development time, that amounts to as much as 20% of your actual time at the NSF. So when I first came to the NSF as a rotator, I felt like I had more time for research than I'd had at home for many years.
Okay, another question coming from someone who says they have a lot on their plate and could really use a deadline. Is there any target times for submitting proposals to programs with no deadlines? Is there, you say we really have these windows here, or is it truly submit whenever you submit?
Yeah, our advice is submit when you are ready. The way it works practically is that because proposals aren't coming in at any particular time, we're sort of waiting until there's a good number of proposals to constitute a panel, and then we constitute a panel. So we cannot really tell you when that panel will be, because it'll depend on how many proposals come in at what frequency. But we have settled into patterns. I can tell you that there are panels held regularly throughout the year. The average time to decision, I think that was mentioned in the presentation, is about 6 months. So really, it doesn't matter. The other bit of advice that we're starting to broadcast is that the fiscal year ends in September. So during summer, June, July, August, program directors, and in fact, everybody is involved in a lot of closeout activities toward the end of the fiscal year. So that's not the time when we hold panels. And so proposals that are submitted in early summer or late spring may have to wait for 7 months instead of about an average of 6 months, right? So that's the only nuanced guidance we provide now. But otherwise, really just submit it when you're ready.
Okay, we've come to the end of our program. I thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, presenters, for all the information you've shared. We would greatly appreciate it if you all could complete our survey so we can get your feedback. You can find the link to the survey in the chat. We appreciate your responses, as these survey results will help us to shape future conference sessions. If you would like to view the recording of this session, it will be available on the Policy Outreach website and on our YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much for participating. Enjoy the rest of your day.